The envelope wasn't just sitting in my mailbox. It was lurking. It was heavy, thick, cream-colored cardstock that felt expensive to the touch, the kind of stationery that screams, "I am important, and I am about to ruin your Tuesday." I knew exactly who it was from before I even saw the embossed Golden Eagle logo of the Oak Creek Homeowners Association in the top left corner. I stood there in my driveway, the humid Florida heat pressing down on my neck, and ripped it open. I didn't even make it to the front door. I just stood on the concrete, sweat already beading on my forehead, reading the neatly typed serif font that would eventually lead to the greatest legal standoff in the history of this subdivision. Dear Mr. Reynolds, it has come to the attention of the Architectural Control Committee that your street-facing window treatments, master bedroom, north face, are in violation of Section 4.2, Paragraph C of the Oak Creek Community Guidelines. Specifically, the shade of the fabric displayed is unauthorized. Current shade, antique beige. Required shade, oatmeal or whispering sand. Please rectify this violation within 48 hours to avoid a non-compliance levy. A fine of $500,000 has been assessed to your account. Sincerely, Linda Holloway, President. Oak Creek HOA. I stared at the paper. Then I looked up at my house. It was a nice house. A 2-story contemporary build with clean lines and a manicured lawn that I spent way too much money maintaining. I looked at the master bedroom window on the 2nd floor. The curtains were there, drawn shut to keep the sun out. They were beige. They were just beige. I looked back at the letter. Antique beige. I looked at the window. I looked at the letter. Whispering sand. A vein in my forehead throbbed. I could actually hear the blood rushing in my ears, a low whoosh whoosh sound that synchronized with the tightening of my fist around the heavy paper. $500. They wanted 500 American dollars because my beige wasn't the right kind of beige. I didn't go inside. I didn't go get a glass of water to cool down. I didn't count to 10. I turned on my heel, marched down my driveway, crossed the pristine asphalt of Wisteria Lane, and headed straight for the beast's lair. Linda Holloway lived directly across the street. Of course she did. That was the only reason she knew about the curtains. She probably had a sniper scope set up in her guest bedroom. Her house was the model of suburban perfection. Her grass was so green it looked radioactive. Her hedges were trimmed with such geometric precision that they looked like low-resolution video game assets. And there she was, in her natural habitat, kneeling in her flower bed, wearing a sun hat the size of a satellite dish and gardening gloves that looked like they had never touched actual dirt. "Linda!" I shouted. I didn't mean to shout. Well, maybe I did. I was halfway up her driveway, waving the certified letter like a declaration of war. She stood up slowly, dusting off her knees with a practiced, elegant motion. She adjusted her hat and gave me that smile. You know the smile. It didn't reach her eyes. It was a smile that said, "I own you, and I own your property value." "Good afternoon, Jack," she said. Her voice was sugary sweet, dripping with fake neighborly concern. "Is everything all right? You look a bit flushed." "The curtains, Linda?" I stopped 5 feet from her, holding the letter up. $500 for the curtains? Are you out of your mind?" She sighed, a long, suffering exhale, as if she had to explain quantum physics to a toddler. She pulled off one glove, revealing a hand manicured to perfection. "Jack, please, lower your voice. We don't yell in Oak Creek. It disturbs the tranquility." "You know what disturbs my tranquility?" I snapped. "Getting a ransom note for my window treatments. They're beige, Linda. They are beige curtains. I bought them at Pottery Barn. They are standard, boring, neutral beige. Antique beige, she corrected instantly. There is a distinction. It's the same color. It is most certainly not. She reached into the pocket of her gardening apron, and, I swear to God, I am not making this up, she pulled out a Pantone color swatch book, a professional graphic design color wheel. She flipped through it with the speed of a card shark until she landed on a specific page. She walked past me, right down to the edge of the sidewalk, and held the book up in the air, squinting one eye as she lined it up with my second-story window across the street. "Come here, Jack. Look," she commanded. I walked over, seething. "Do you see this?" She pointed to a tiny square on the paper. "This is whispering sand. It has a yellow undertone, a warmth that complements the stucco exterior of our homes. Now, look at your window." I looked. It was a piece of cloth hanging in a window. "Your curtains," she continued, her voice dropping to a conspiratorial whisper, "have a gray undertone. It's cool. It clashes with the warm earth tones of the neighborhood palette. It creates visual friction. It lowers the cohesion." I stared at her. I looked for a camera crew. I looked for Ashton Kutcher. Nothing. Just a middle-aged woman in floral print, holding a color wheel against the sky. "Linda," I said, my voice trembling with suppressed rage. "Nobody can tell the difference. You are literally the only person on this planet who would notice that. From the street, it just looks like a whitish curtain." She snapped the book shut. The sound was like a gunshot in the quiet afternoon. "I noticed, Jack. And the rules are the rules. You signed the CC&Rs when you bought the house. Uniformity is the bedrock of value, quote unquote. I'm not paying it," I said. "And I'm not taking them down. They cost me $300. "Then the fine will double every week," she said simply, turning back to her petunias. "And we will place a lien on your property. I'd hate to see that happen, Jack. You're such a vibrant addition to the street, even if your taste is a bit urban." That was it. That was the moment. Urban. She said it like a slur. "I'm appealing," I said. "I'll see you at the board meeting on Thursday." She didn't even look back. "Make sure you fill out Form 12B in triplicate before you arrive. We don't hear unscheduled grievances." I spent the next 48 hours in a state of manic obsession. I went to Home Depot. I went to Lowe's. I went to 3 different specialty fabric stores. I carried a paint chip of whispering sand with me like it was a piece of the true cross. Do you know how hard it is to match whispering sand? It's impossible. It doesn't exist in nature. It's a color invented by sadists to torture the middle class. Every curtain I found was either too cream or too tan or too taupe. By Thursday night, I had no new curtains. I had only my rage and a 3-page speech prepared for the board. The meeting was held in the community center, a soulless building that smelled of floor wax and stale coffee. I walked in at 7:00 p.m. sharp. The room was set up like a tribunal. 3 plastic tables were pushed together at the front, covered in a green tablecloth. Sitting behind them were the 5 members of the board. In the center sat Linda, the queen bee. To her left was Bob, a retired accountant who measured grass height with a ruler. To her right was Karen. Yes, her name was actual Karen, who was in charge of the social committee and once reported me for leaving a pumpkin out on November 1st. The other 2 were interchangeable nodding heads, whose names I hadn't bothered to learn. There were about 10 other residents in the metal folding chairs, all looking miserable. Most were there to ask permission to paint their front doors or plant a tree. They looked beaten down. Broken. "Next item," Linda announced, banging a tiny wooden gavel that looked like a toy. Resident Jack Reynolds. Violation of Section 4.2. Unauthorized window treatments. I stood up. I walked to the podium. I felt like I was on trial for murder, not for decorating. "State your case," Linda said, not looking up from her notes. "Hi, everyone," I started, trying to be charming. "Look, we all want the neighborhood to look nice. I get that. But we're talking about a shade difference that is imperceptible to the human eye from a distance of more than 10 feet. I have photos here." I pulled out a poster board I had made at Kinko's. It showed side-by-side comparisons of my curtains and the approved color. They looked identical. "I took these photos at 8 o'clock a.m., noon, and 5 o'clock p.m., I continued. Under no lighting condition can you tell the difference. This fine is arbitrary and punitive. I am asking for a variance to keep my current curtains." Bob, the accountant, leaned into his microphone. "Mr. Reynolds, did you bring a swatch of the current fabric?" No, they're hanging in my window," I said. "Then how can we verify the thread count and weave density?" Bob asked. "What? It's not about the weave, it's about the color." "Texture affects light reflection," Linda chimed in. "If the weave is too tight, it creates a sheen. We don't allow sheen. It looks cheap." "They are not cheap," I felt my voice rising. "They are linen." "Linen wrinkles," Karen noted, scribbling something on her notepad. "That explains the disheveled look." "They are not disheveled." I slammed my hand on the podium. The room went silent. The nodding heads stopped nodding. Linda looked up, her eyes narrowing. "Mr. Reynolds," she said, her voice ice-cold, "aggressive behavior will not be tolerated. That is a violation of the Code of Conduct. That is an additional $50 fine." "You have got to be kidding me," I laughed. But it was a dark, hysterical laugh. "I'm aggressive? You're fining me over the difference between beige and slightly different beige." "It is about rules, Jack," Linda said, leaning forward. "If we let you have antique beige, then the Johnsons will want mocha, and then the Smiths will want eggshell. And before you know it, this neighborhood looks like a carnival. We have standards. The bylaws are clear." She picked up a thick, leather-bound binder, the HOA Bible. She opened it to a bookmarked page and began to read aloud. Section 4.2. Window Treatments. Subsection C. Definition of approved coverings. All street-facing windows must be covered by appropriate window treatments to ensure privacy and uniformity. Approved treatments are defined as static, non-reflective cloth, or fabric materials of a neutral earth tone shade found in Appendix A, or standard white wooden blinds. She looked up at me over her reading glasses. Static, non-reflective. Cloth, neutral shade. Do you have any of those things, Jack? No. You have an unapproved shade. Appeal denied. You have 24 hours to remove them, or the fine doubles. Next item. I stood there. I was frozen. I was ready to flip the table. I wanted to grab that gavel and throw it through a window. But then, something happened. My brain, usually a chaotic mess of sports trivia and deadlines, suddenly sharpened. It replayed what she just said. Approved treatments are defined as static, non-reflective cloth or fabric materials. I looked at Linda. She was already dismissing me, waving her hand for the next victim. "Wait," I said. She sighed. "Mr. Reynolds, you are dismissed." "Just so I'm clear," I said, my voice dropping to a calm, deadly register. "The rule dictates what kind of cloth or fabric I can use, correct?" "Yes," she said, bored. "And it says window treatments must be those things." "Yes. Curtains, blinds, shades." But it doesn't say anything about what is behind the glass if it's not a fabric window treatment, does it? Linda blinked. The bylaw covers window treatments, Mr. Reynolds. If you put it in the window, it's a treatment. No, I smiled. It wasn't a nice smile. It was the smile of a man who just realized he held a royal flush. The bylaw restricts cloth and fabric. It regulates blinds. Does it regulate furniture? Don't be absurd, Linda scoffed. We don't regulate interior furniture. Does it regulate lighting? Only exterior holiday lighting, Bob piped up. Section 8.1. Right, I said. Exterior. But interior lighting? Lamps? TVs? We cannot tell you what lamps to have inside your home, Mr. Reynolds, Linda said, her patience gone. Now sit down before I call security. Oh, I'm leaving, I said. I gathered my poster board. I'll take the curtains down tonight, Linda. You win. No more antique beige. Good, she said, looking satisfied. See that you do. I promise, I said, backing away. You won't see a single thread of unapproved fabric in my window ever again. I'm going to go for a much clearer look. I walked out of that community center with a vibration in my chest that wasn't rage anymore. It was pure, unadulterated adrenaline. I got into my car and sat there for a moment in the dark parking lot. I pulled up the HOA CCNRs on my phone. I had the PDF saved. I searched for digital displays. No results. I searched for televisions. No results. I searched for luminescence. Nothing. The bylaws were written in 1998. They were worried about people hanging bedsheets or aluminum foil in their windows. They were worried about neon beer signs. They hadn't anticipated the future. They hadn't anticipated me. I put the car in drive and peeled out of the parking lot. I didn't go home. I went to the one place where bad ideas become reality. I pulled out my phone and dialed a number I hadn't used since I worked as a production manager for concerts. Tony? I said when the gruff voice answered. Jack? Ideally, you're calling me because you have a job and not because you need bail money, Tony said. Background noise suggested he was in a bar. I need a favor, I said. And I need a quote. I need to know how much it costs to rent or buy a commercial-grade video wall. How big? Big, I said. Big enough to fill a standard master bedroom window frame. 2 of them. And Tony? They need to be bright. I'm talking visible from space bright. Tony paused. Jack, you live in a suburb. What are you doing? I'm engaging in a little interior redecorating, I said. I need 8,000 nits of brightness, Tony. I want high contrast. I want the blacks to be the void of space and the reds to burn retinas. You sound like a supervillain, Tony laughed. No, I said, turning onto the main road. I'm just a concerned homeowner who wants to ensure his property value is properly illuminated. I can get you the gear, Tony said. I got some panels that just came off a stadium tour. They're sitting in the warehouse, but installing them in a residential house, that's going to require some structural work. We'll need to reinforce the interior wall. Do it, I said. When can you start? Saturday morning. But Jack, it's going to cost you. Tony, I said, looking at the $500 fine notice still sitting on my passenger seat. Whatever it costs, it's cheaper than my dignity. I hung up. I drove home. I parked in my driveway and looked across the street. Linda's house was dark. She was probably asleep, dreaming of measuring grass blades. I went upstairs to my bedroom. I ripped the beige curtains off the rod. I tore them down with a savage joy. I threw them in the corner. The window was bare. I could see right across the street to Linda's house. You want cohesion, Linda? I whispered to the glass. I'll give you high-definition cohesion. Saturday arrived with the rumble of a diesel engine. I was up at 6 o'clock a.m., drinking coffee and vibrating with anticipation. At 7 o'clock a.m. sharp, a massive white box truck backed into my driveway. It didn't have a logo on the side, just a dot number and dirt. Tony hopped out. Big Tony lived up to his name. He was 6'4", shaped like a refrigerator, and had a beard that could hide a wrench. He was wearing a neon yellow vest and a hard hat, which I hadn't asked him to wear, but I appreciated the theatricality. "Morning, boss," Tony boomed, slamming the truck door. "We brought the payload." "Keep it down," I hissed, glancing across the street. "The enemy has ears." Tony looked at Linda's house, then back at me. "That's the target?" "That's the target." Two other guys jumped out of the back. They started unloading heavy black flight cases, the kind used for rock concerts. They had wheels and metal-reinforced corners. We had just gotten the first case to the front porch when the inevitable happened. The front door across the street opened. Linda stepped out. She was wearing a bathrobe and slippers, clutching her morning tea. She stared at the truck. She stared at the flight cases. She stared at Tony, who looked like he ate homeowners associations for breakfast. She marched down her driveway. Of course she did. "Jack!" she called out. "Jack Reynolds!" I turned, putting on my best innocent face. "Good morning, Linda. Lovely day for it." She stopped at the edge of my lawn, eyeing the truck suspiciously. "What is going on here? Commercial vehicles are prohibited from overnight parking." "He just got here," I said. "He's not parking. He's unloading." "Unloading what?" She pointed a manicured finger at the flight case. "That looks industrial." "It's, home improvement," I said. Tony stepped forward. He towered over her. He pulled a clipboard out of his vest. I had no idea he had a clipboard, and looked at it. "Ma'am, please stand back for your safety," Tony said in a deep, authoritative voice. "We are transporting sensitive electronic substrates for an interior thermal luminescence upgrade." Linda blinked. "A what?" "Thermal luminescence," Tony repeated, making it up on the spot. "Mr. Reynolds is upgrading his internal load-bearing efficiency. It's a green initiative, very eco-friendly, reduces carbon footprint by, 40%. Linda's eyes narrowed, but the phrase green initiative confused her. She loved rules, but she also loved pretending to care about the environment. "Is there a permit for this?" she asked. "Interior work," I said quickly. "No permit needed for furniture and electronics installation. Check the bylaws, section 9.1. No jurisdiction over interior appliances." She looked at the flight case again. "That is a very large appliance." "It's a specialized humidifier," Tony said. "Industrial grade, for the moisture." I bit my lip to stop from laughing. "Well," Linda sniffed, pulling her robe tighter, "just make sure that truck is gone by noon, and I expect the noise to be kept to a minimum. It's Saturday." "We'll be quiet as mice, ma'am," Tony said. She turned and walked back to her house, looking back over her shoulder twice. "Humidifier?" I asked Tony as soon as she was gone. "I panicked," Tony shrugged. "Let's get these screens inside before she Googles what a subwoofer looks like." The installation took 6 hours. It was a masterpiece of engineering. Tony and his crew built a custom frame inside my bedroom window. They didn't block the window. They filled it. We installed 4 55-inch commercial LED panels, mounted vertically and seamlessly tiled together to perfectly cover the glass from the inside. From the outside, when they were off, they just looked like a black backing behind the glass, like I had put up blackout shades. But from the inside? My bedroom looked like the bridge of the Starship Enterprise. "Power check," Tony said around 2:00 p.m. He plugged the master control unit into the dedicated 20-amp circuit we had run from the main breaker. The screens flickered to life. The boot-up sequence alone lit up the room so brightly I had to squint. "Brightness is at 10%, Tony said, tapping on a laptop connected to the processor. "You want to see 100%? "Not yet," I said. "Save it for the premiere." "We hooked up the audio too." Tony pointed to 2 directional speakers we had mounted on the windowsill, facing outward. "These are shotgun speakers. They focus sound like a laser. If you aim them right, the person across the street will hear it clear as day, but the neighbors next door will barely hear a murmur." "Tony," I said, tearing up, "you're an artist." "I know," he grinned. "So what's the content? You gonna play movies? Sports?" I pulled a USB drive out of my pocket. I had spent the previous night editing. "Not exactly," I said. I plugged the drive into the media player. "I call this piece the Retribution Loop." I waited until nightfall. The sun went down around 8:15 p.m. The streetlights flickered on. The neighborhood settled into that eerie, quiet calm of suburbia. Blue light flickered from living room, windows as people watched TV. Sprinklers hissed to life. I sat in my bedroom in a lawn chair I had brought up, holding an iPad that controlled the system. I had a cold beer in the cup holder. I peered through the tiny gap between the video wall and the window frame. Linda was outside. She was on her porch, sitting in a rocking chair, probably reading the bylaws for fun. "Showtime?" I whispered. I tapped the screen. Phase 1. The Attention Getter. I didn't go full brightness immediately. I started with a slow fade in. The windows of my master bedroom suddenly glowed a deep, ominous red. Not a soft lamp red, a blood red, the kind of red you see in a submarine when the torpedoes are in the water. I saw Linda look up. She stopped rocking. She took off her glasses and squinted at my house. Phase 2. The Signal. I hit play on the video file. On the screens, facing outward to the street, the image of the American flag appeared. But not a normal flag. The jagged, digital flag from the Purge movies. It waved in slow motion. Then, the audio kicked in. I set the volume to 75%. The sound cut through the quiet night air like a knife. Beep. The emergency broadcast system tone. The sound that triggers a primal fear in every American who grew up during the Cold War or watches too many disaster movies. Linda jumped out of her chair. She dropped her book. Then the voice. That calm, terrifying, synthesized voice. "This is not a test. This is your emergency broadcast system, announcing the commencement of the annual purge sanctioned by the U.S. government." I cranked the brightness to 50%. The red light flooded the street. It washed over Linda's house, turning her beige siding into a hellscape of crimson. Her petunias looked like they were bleeding. Weapons of Class 4 and lower have been authorized for use during the purge. Linda was scrambling. She was looking around wildly. She pulled out her phone. I saw lights coming on in the houses next door. The Johnsons came out on their porch. The Smiths peeked through their blinds. "Commencing at the siren, any and all crime, including murder, will be legal for 12 continuous hours." Linda marched to the edge of the street, screaming something. I couldn't hear her over the broadcast, but I could see her mouth moving. She was pointing at my window. I tapped the iPad. Phase 3. Max Power. I slid the brightness fader to 100%. Whoosh! It was like a solar flare went off in my bedroom. The light was so intense it actually heated up the glass. The entire street was illuminated. Shadows were cast 3 houses down. And then, the siren. Why? Why? The Purge siren. That rhythmic, guttural, mechanical wail. Linda covered her ears. She retreated up her driveway, bathed in the strobe light effect of the flashing red alerts on the screen. I took a sip of my beer. Cohesion, I chuckled. It's all about cohesion. My phone buzzed. It was a text from the neighbor to my left, Dave. Dave. Dude, WTF? LMAO. I texted back. Art project. Enjoy the show. Linda was on her phone now, frantically pacing back and forth on her porch. She was calling the police. I knew it. I checked my watch. 8:35 p.m. I had the bylaws open on my lap. I had the city noise ordinance open on my other screen. Let them come. I was ready. The flashing red light from my window was hypnotic. It pulsed with the rhythm of the siren. A heartbeat of pure electronic malice. Thump, 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 thump. Across the street, the scene was developing exactly as I had simulated in my head during the 3 sleepless nights of planning. Linda was no longer alone on her lawn. Her husband, Gary, had emerged. Gary was a man who looked like he had been slowly eroded by wind and sand over the course of 30 years. He was wearing plaid pajama bottoms and a t-shirt that said, "Golf is life." And he looked like he wanted to be anywhere else in the known universe, possibly a black hole. He was trying to get Linda to go inside. I could see him tugging at her elbow, but Linda was immovable. She was a statue of indignation. She was holding her phone up, recording the assault on her senses. I chuckled and tapped the keyboard on my laptop. "Tony, you magnificent bastard," I muttered. I had anticipated the recording. When we set up the screens, Tony had asked me about refresh rates. We had dialed the screens to a specific frequency. 60 Hz interlaced with a high-speed flicker that the human eye glosses over, but a digital camera sensor hates. I zoomed in with my own binoculars. Linda was tapping her phone screen furiously. On her display, my window would look like a flickering, rolling mess of black bars and distorted static. Moiré patterns. She wouldn't get a clear shot of the offensive content. To the naked eye, it was the Purge. To her iPhone, it was a glitch in the Matrix. Evidence? Inadmissible, I narrated to my empty room. I took another sip of beer. The siren looped. Wank! Then, the first cruiser arrived. You have to appreciate the irony of the visual. A police car, with its flashing blue and red lights, pulling up to a house that was already flashing violently red. It looked like a disco for the criminally insane. The car didn't pull into my driveway. It pulled up to the curb in front of Linda's house, because she was the one waving her arms like she was guiding a 747 into a landing. 2 officers stepped out. One was older, heavy-set, looking like he was 2 days away from retirement and 5 minutes away from a heart attack. That was Officer Miller. I knew him from the time my car got broken into. Nice guy, tired guy. The other was young, fresh haircut, uniform too tight, hand resting on his holster like he expected a ninja attack. Rookie. I watched through the blinds as Linda assaulted them. She didn't greet them. She launched a verbal offensive. She was pointing at my house, then at her eyes, then at the sky. She mimed a strangling motion. Officer Miller looked at my house. He shielded his eyes against the glare. Even from here, I saw him mouth the word, "Wow." They talked for a solid 5 minutes. Linda was gesturing wildly. Miller was nodding slowly, writing nothing down. Finally, they turned and walked toward my house. "Game time," I said. I didn't turn the video off. That would be an admission of guilt. I turned the volume down just enough so we could hear each other, but not enough to kill the ambiance. The siren was now a low, menacing hum, like a distant air raid. The red light still bathed the porch in an apocalyptic glow. I walked downstairs. I checked myself in the hall mirror. I was wearing jeans and a black polo. Casual, but respectful. I grabbed the binder. Knock, knock, knock. I opened the door. The red light from the windows spilled out onto the porch, making Officer Miller look like a demon, and the rookie looked like he was about to wet himself. "Good evening, officers," I said, leaning against the doorframe. "Is there a problem?" "Is there a—" The rookie started, blinking rapidly. "Sir, your house is glowing." "It's atmospheric, isn't it?" I smiled. "I'm going for a mood." Officer Miller sighed. He looked exhausted. "Mr. Reynolds, we got a complaint from your neighbor across the street. Mrs. Holloway. She says you're, and I quote, psychologically torturing the neighborhood with a broadcast of domestic terrorism." "It's a movie, officer," I said. "It's called The Purge. It's a critique of socioeconomic disparity in America. Very highbrow stuff." "It's very red," Miller said. "And it's loud." "Is it?" I asked innocently. I opened the binder. I flipped to tab 2. Local Ordinances. According to City Ordinance 45B, the noise limit for residential zones after 8 o'clock p.m. is 60 decibels at the property line. Before 10 o'clock p.m., it's 75 decibels. I pulled a digital decibel meter out of my pocket. I had bought it on Amazon for $20. I held it up. "Current reading at the threshold," I said, showing them the screen. 68 decibels. "I'm 7 decibels under the limit, officer. I'm actually being considerate." Miller looked at the meter. He looked at the rookie. He suppressed a smirk. Technically, he's right about the noise. "But the light," the rookie interjected. "Sir, it's blinding. It's a distraction to drivers." "I'm on a cul-de-sac," I countered. "The only traffic is local. And regarding the light intensity—" I flipped to tab 3, HOA covenants and city light codes. The city code prohibits spotlights directed at oncoming traffic and strobe lights that mimic emergency vehicles. This is neither. It is a diffused LED display located inside the domicile. It is effectively a very large television. There is no law limiting the size of a man's television, is there? Miller scratched his chin. "Not that I know of." "And the HOA bylaws?" I continued, on a roll now. "I know Linda probably told you this was a violation, but Section 4.2 only covers window treatments, curtains, blinds, fabric. This is furniture. It's a video wall. It's interior decor." I leaned in closer. "Officer, she fined me $500 because my beige curtains were the wrong shade of beige. This is malicious compliance. And it is 100% legal." Miller looked back at Linda, who was standing on the sidewalk, arms crossed, waiting for the handcuffs to come out. "So," Miller said slowly, "you're saying this is a spite dispute?" "I prefer to call it an educational display regarding the limits of authority," I said. Miller laughed. He actually laughed. A deep, wheezy chuckle. "All right. Look, Mr. Reynolds, it's legal. You've done your homework. But do me a favor. Maybe turn it down a notch. We've got calls backing up and I don't want to come back here because Mrs. Halloway claims you're summoning Satan. I can switch it to SpongeBob if that helps, I offered. Just keep it under the decibel limit, Miller said. He turned to the rookie. Let's go. Civil matter. But, the rookie stammered. Civil. Matter, Miller repeated firmly. I watched them walk back to Linda. I couldn't hear what they said, but I saw Linda's body language. She went stiff. Then she threw her hands up. Then she stomped her foot, actually stomped it, and stormed back into her house. Officer Miller gave me a little wave as he got into his car. I waved back. I went back inside. I sat down at my control station. Round one to the defendant, I whispered. But I knew Linda. This wasn't over. Linda didn't surrender. She escalated. And sure enough, 20 minutes later, the escalation arrived. I was enjoying the victory, watching the loop run, when suddenly the air conditioning cut out. The hum of the refrigerator downstairs stopped. The house went pitch black, except for the window. The window stayed blazing red. I laughed out loud. Oh, Linda, you predictable amateur. I looked out the peephole. I couldn't see the side of my house, but I knew what had happened. The external breaker box. In our neighborhood, the breaker panels were on the outside of the garage, a stupid design choice from the 90s. Someone, Linda, or perhaps poor, conscripted Gary, had walked up my driveway and flipped the main switch. They thought that killing the power would kill the screens. They didn't know about the UPS. When I hired Tony, I told him, I want this system to be nuclear-proof. Tony had installed a rack of uninterruptible power supplies, massive battery backups usually used for server farms. They could run the video wall at full brightness for 4 hours without grid power. I didn't turn the house lights back on. I didn't go outside to flip the breaker back. I let the house stay dark. It made the red window look even more terrifying. Now it wasn't just a house with a weird window. It was a pitch-black void with a demon eye. I texted Dave next door. Me. Did you see someone by my breaker box? Dave. Yeah, Gary just ran across your lawn like a ninja, a fat, slow ninja. He flipped your switch. Me. Thanks. Capture that on your Ring camera? Dave. Got it in 4K. Perfect. Trespassing and tampering with utilities. I added that to the mental file. I let the loop run until 10:00 p.m. exactly. Then, being a law-abiding citizen, I cut the audio, but I left the video running. I changed the file, though. The Purge was a good opener. But for the overnight shift? I needed something simpler. Something that would haunt her dreams. I loaded a high-resolution image of a single, unblinking human eye. I cropped it so the pupil was centered in the window frame. I added a slow, subtle zoom effect, so it looked like the eye was breathing, getting slightly closer, then slightly further away. I pointed it directly at Linda's master bedroom window. Sleep tight, Linda, I whispered. Day 2. The Siege. Sunday morning. The neighborhood was buzzing. I could see people walking their dogs, slowing down as they passed my house. The screens were off for now, black voids in the window. I was in the kitchen making coffee when the doorbell rang. It wasn't Linda. It was a delegation. I opened the door to find the Johnsons. Nice couple, lived 2 doors down, and Mr. Henderson, old guy, lived on the corner. Morning, Jack, Bill Johnson said. He looked tired. Morning, Bill. Mr. Henderson, coffee? Jack, Bill started, looking uncomfortable. Look, we get it. Linda is a lot. We all hate the beige police, but man, my living room was flashing red all night. It's like living inside a toaster oven. I apologize for the light bleed, I said sincerely. I can install side blinders to focus the beam more directly on Linda's house. Mr. Henderson chuckled. I don't mind the show. Reminds me of the disco days. But Jack, she's calling an emergency board meeting, tonight. She's trying to get a lawyer involved. Let her, I said. I have a lawyer too. His name is Common Sense and I have him on retainer. She's saying she's going to fine you for nuisance and harassment, Bill said. She's talking about $1,000 a day. She can bill me whatever she wants, I said. I'm not paying it. And if she tries to foreclose, I'll buy the debt myself. Jack, just be careful, Bill said. She's organizing a petition. Thanks for the heads up, Bill. I closed the door. A petition. Cute. I spent the afternoon refining my content strategy. If she wanted war, she would get total psychological warfare. At 7:00 p.m., the emergency meeting was scheduled at Linda's house. I wasn't invited, but I didn't need to be. I had a front row seat. As soon as I saw the cars arriving, the other board members pulling into her driveway, I initiated Phase 2, the emoji. I switched the screens on, a bright, neon yellow background. In the center, a massive animated thinking face emoji. The one with the hand on the chin, looking skeptical. It rotated slowly. I cranked the brightness. It lit up her living room where they were meeting. Every time they looked out the window, they would see a giant, 10-foot-tall yellow face judging them. I sat on my porch, drinking a beer, waving at the board members as they walked in. They looked at the window, then at me, then quickly looked away. Linda came to the window and slammed her curtains shut. Joke's on you, Linda, I muttered. My lumens punch through standard beige fabric. And they did. I could see the yellow glow filtering through her drapes. Her entire meeting was taking place inside a banana. Day 3, the climax. Monday, the day the cease and desist arrived. It came via courier. A thick envelope from Holloway, Finch and Associates. No relation to Linda, just a coincidence, but funny nonetheless. I read it on the porch. It demanded the immediate removal of the electronic nuisance devices and cited distress, loss of enjoyment of property, and my favorite, optical assault. They gave me 24 hours. I looked at the window. I looked at the letter. I decided to accelerate the timeline. I called Tony. Tony, how much for the fog machine? Jack, please tell me you're not doing what I think you're doing. I need atmosphere, Tony. The visual isn't enough. I need texture. I can have a smoker there in an hour. By 6:00 p.m., I had a heavy-duty stage fogger set up on the porch, timed to release a burst of dense, low-hanging fog every 10 minutes. But the pièce de résistance was the content for the final night. I had commissioned a freelancer on Fiverr. I sent him a photo of Linda. I asked him to create a caricature. Not a mean one, just a slightly exaggerated one. Linda as a queen, wearing a crown made of HOA violation letters, sitting on a throne of beige paint cans. And underneath, in scrolling, Star Wars-style text. All hail Queen Linda. May her beige reign for 1,000 years. I hit play at dusk. The street filled with fog. The giant Queen Linda glowed in the night. The scrolling text offered mock obeisance. It was glorious. It was petty. It was expensive. And it broke her. At 8:30 p.m., my phone rang. Unknown number. Hello? Jack. It was her. Her voice sounded brittle, like a dry leaf about to crumble. Hello, Linda. Lovely evening. Have you seen the tribute? I commissioned it just for you. Turn it off, she whispered. I can't hear you, Linda. The adulation is too loud. Jack, please, she said, and for the first time I heard a crack in the armor. I have a migraine. I haven't slept in 2 days. My living room is yellow. My bedroom is red. The neighbors are laughing at me. Gary is staying at a hotel. Gary left? I asked, genuinely surprised. Smart man. What do you want? She asked. Do you want the fine canceled? Is that it? I'll cancel the fine. The fine? I laughed. Linda, we are way past the fine. The fine was the appetizer. We are currently digesting the main course. Then what? She shrieked. What, do you want to take those godforsaken screens down? I paused. This was the moment. The negotiation. I want a letter, I said calmly, signed by you and the entire board. Notarized. A letter saying what? A letter granting me, Jack Reynolds, a permanent, irrevocable variance for all window treatments, exterior paint colors, and landscaping choices for as long as I own this property. Total immunity. The Jack rule. I can't do that. That violates the spirit of the... Then the screens stay, I said. And tomorrow night? Tomorrow night is dubstep night. I've got a subwoofer that Tony says can liquefy bowels. Silence on the line. Heavy breathing. And, I added, one more thing. What? I want you to resign. Excuse me? You heard me. You step down as president. You let someone else run the show. Someone who doesn't carry a Pantone book in their apron. I built this community, she cried. You strangled this community, I corrected. Resign, or the bass drops at dawn. There was a long, agonizing pause. I watched her house. I saw the silhouette of her standing in the window, bathed in the glow of her own caricature. Fine, she said. The word was strangled out of her throat. I'll have the paperwork drawn up, I said. Bring the notary to my porch tomorrow at 9:00 a.m. If everything is signed, the screens come down. You're a monster, she said. No, Linda, I said, looking at my glowing masterpiece. I'm just a guy who likes beige curtains. Good night. Part 6. The Peace Treaty. The next morning, the signing ceremony was brief and tense. Linda arrived with the vice president, Bob, and a mobile notary. She looked like she hadn't slept in a week. Her eyes were puffy. She refused to look at the window, which was currently displaying a peaceful loop of a fireplace, just to mock her with coziness. I read the document. It was perfect. Irrevocable variance. Exemption from Article 4. Resignation of Linda Halloway, effective immediately. I signed. She signed. The notary stamped it. Pleasure doing business with you, I said, handing her a copy. She snatched it and walked away without a word. So, Bob said, lingering on the porch. He looked at the screens. That's quite a setup. It is, I agreed. You really gonna take it down? A deal's a deal, Bob. I called Tony that afternoon. Mission accomplished, I said. Come pick up the payload. You sure? Tony asked. I was looking forward to dubstep night. Maybe next time, I said. The takedown took half the time of the install. By dinner time, the screens were gone. The window was bare glass again. I went to the closet. I dug out the box. I pulled out the original offending curtains. Antique beige. I hung them up. They hung there, limp and neutral. They were boring. They were plain. They were perfect. I walked outside to the curb to admire my work. The sun was setting. The curtains looked, well, they looked beige. Bill Johnson walked by, walking his golden retriever. He stopped and looked at the window. It's over? he asked. It's over, I said. Who won? I looked at the curtains. Then I looked at Linda's house. The for sale sign wasn't up yet, but I had a feeling it would be coming soon. Gary had come back, but he looked different. He was smiling. He was actually whistling as he got the mail. I think we all won, Bill, I said. Hey, Bill said, lowering his voice. Between you and me, those curtains do look a little gray. I looked at him. Bill, I said, don't make me call Tony. Bill laughed and walked away. I went back inside, grabbed a cold beer, and sat in my living room. It was dark. It was quiet. There were no flashing lights, no sirens, just the soft, comforting silence of a man who had stared into the abyss of HOA bylaws and made the abyss blink first. I looked at the blank wall where the screens used to be. It looked a little empty. Maybe I'd put up a painting. Something tasteful. I pulled out my phone and searched for neon beer signs. Just in case, I whispered. Just in case.